This program, in the Lannan Literary Video Series, and the reading you are about to see were produced by the Lannan Foundation. The Foundation's literary program is dedicated to supporting outstanding contemporary literature and presenting exceptional writers to a wider audience.
This is called Pewter because, among other things, pewter is one of the few substances which gets larger when it gets colder. It's my expectation about growing old. This is a poem that you have to understand how to walk into it because of the signal in the first line. It's not realistic. It's a little like Midsummer Night's Dream. And it crushes a lot of different histories together. It has Louis XVI fleeing during the time of the French Revolution and the Reign of Terror in through the forests of Pennsylvania, like that. But the setting really is the setting of my young manhood in Paris. When I lived, as I got poorer, I was living in a garret, which you call a mansarde, which are the top stories of the buildings. It's 6 stories up without an elevator, so you could get it very cheaply. Pewter. Thrushes flying under the lake. Nightingales singing underground. Yes, my king. Paris, hungry and leisurely, just after the war. Yes. America falling into history. Yes. Those silent winter afternoons along the Seine when I was always alone. Yes, my king. Rain everywhere in the forests of Pennsylvania as the king's coach lumbered and was caught, and all stood gathered close while the black trees went on and on. Ah, my king, it was the sweet time of our lives, the rain shining on their faces, the loud sound of rain around. Like the nights we waited, knowing our beloved was probably warm and moaning under someone else. That cold mansarde looked out over the huge hospital of the poor and far down on Paris, gray and beautiful under the February rain. Between that and this, that yes and this yes, between my king, that forgotten girl, forgotten pain, and the consequence. Those lovely, long ago night bells that I did not notice grow more and more apparent in me, like pewter expanding as it cools. Yes, like a king halted in the great forest of Pennsylvania, like me singing these prison songs to praise the gray, to praise her, to tell of me, yes, and of you, my king. One of my preoccupations is the lack of a vocabulary. We have, what, 6 words for love. And as I used to tell psychiatrists, we know that there's a correlation between your knowledge of a subject and your vocabulary. And I told them, which they didn't want to hear, though they knew it, that the Eskimos have 136 words for ice and snow. The psychiatrists have 6 for the heart. It's not what the poem is about, but that's where it starts. It's about something that's hard to define, and the words kind of are not easy. Michiko was a Japanese woman I was married to, and we were in Greece at this time, finding something. I say, moon is horses in the tempered dark, because horse is the closest I can get to it. I sit on this terrace of the worn villa the king's telegrapher built on the mountain that looks down on a blue sea and the small white ferry that crosses slowly to the next island each noon. Michiko is dying in the house behind me. The long windows open so I can hear the faint sound she will make when she wants watermelon to suck, or so I can take her to a bucket in the corner of the high-ceilinged room, which is the best we can do for a chamber pot. She will lean against my leg as she sits, so as not to fall over in her weakness. How strange and fine to get so near to it. The arches of her feet are like voices of children calling in the grove of lemon trees, where my heart is as helpless as crushed birds. This is my, what do you call it, Taoist poem. Going wrong. The fish are strange. They are brought up the mountain in the dawn most days, beautiful and alien and cold from night under the sea. The grand rooms fading from their flat eyes. Soft machinery of the dark, the man thinks, washing them. What can you know of my machinery? Demands the Lord. Sure, the man says, and goes on quietly and cutting into them, laying back the dozen struts, getting to the muck of something terrible. The Lord insists. You are the one who chooses to live this way. I build cities where things are human. I make Tuscany, and you go to live with rock and silence. The man washes away the blood and arranges the fish on a big plate, starts the onions in the hot olive oil, and puts in peppers. You have lived all year without women. He takes out everything and puts in the fish. No one knows where you are. People forget you. You are vain and stubborn. The man slices tomatoes and lemons, takes out the fish and scrambles eggs. I am not stubborn, he thinks, laying all of it on the table in the courtyard full of early sun, shadows of swallows flying on the food. Not stubborn, just greedy. This is called a description of happiness in Copenhagen. I used to read this, but people kept coming up to me and saying, "You call that happiness?" And they were right. For them, A description of happiness in Copenhagen. All this windless day, snow fell into the king's garden, where I walked, perfecting and growing old, abandoning one by one everybody, randomly in love with the paradise furnace of my mind. Now I sit in the dark, dreaming of a marble sun and its strictness. This is to tell you I am not coming back, to tell you instead of my life among people who must wrestle their hearts in order to feel anything, as though it were unnatural. What I master by day still unravels in the night. But I go on with this cargo cult, blindly feeling the snow come down, learning to flower by tightening. Searching for Pittsburgh, which is where I grew up. The fox pushes slowly, blindly through me at night, between the liver and the stomach, comes to the heart and hesitates, considers, and then goes around it, trying to escape the mildness of our violent world. Goes deeper, searching for what remains of Pittsburgh in me. The rusting mills sprawled gigantically along 3 rivers. The authority of them. The gritty alleys where we played every evening were stained pink by the inferno always surging in the sky, as though Christ and the Father were still fashioning the earth. Locomotives driving through the cold rain, loudly and bestial in their strength. Massive water flowing morning and night throughout a city girded with 90 bridges, sumptuous-shouldered, sleek-thighed, obstinate and majestic, unquenchable. All grip and flood, mighty sucking and deep-rooted grace. A city of brick and tired wood, ox and sovereign spirit, primitive Pittsburgh, winter, month after month, telling of death, the beauty forcing us as much as harshness, our spirits forged in that wilderness, our minds forged by the heart, making together a consequence of America. The fox watched me build my Pittsburgh again and again, in Paris afternoons on Butte Chaumont, on Greek islands with their fields of stone, in beds with women sometimes amid their gentleness. Now the fox will live in our ruined house. My tomatoes grow ripe among the weeds and the sound of water. In this happy place my serious heart has made. Alone. This is 90% true. Most of these poems are just, in a simple-minded way, literally true. I think this one's true, but I don't ask you to believe it, and I don't believe it either. But it was true. Alone. I never thought Michiko would come back after she died. But if she did, I knew it would be as a lady in a long white dress. It is strange that she has come back as somebody's Dalmatian. I meet the men walking her on a leash almost every week. He says good morning, and I stoop down to calm her. He said once that she was never like that with other people. Sometimes she is tethered on their lawn when I go by. If nobody is around, I sit on the grass. When she finally quiets, she puts her head in my lap, and we watch each other's eyes as I whisper in her soft ears. She cares nothing about the mystery. She likes it best when I touch her head and tell her small things about my days and our friends. That makes her happy, the way it always did. Highlights and interstices. We think of lifetimes as mostly the exceptional and sorrows. Marriage we remember as the children, vacations, and emergencies, the uncommon parts. But the best is often when nothing is happening. The way a mother picks up the child almost without noticing and carries her across Waller Street while talking with the other woman. What if she could keep all of that? Our lives happen between the memorable. I have lost 2,000 habitual breakfasts with Michiko. What I miss most about her is that commonplace I can no longer remember. Tear it down. We find our heart only by dismantling what the heart knows. By redefining the morning, we find a morning that comes just after darkness and before day. We can break through marriage into marriage, get beyond affection, and wade mouth deep into love. We must unlearn the constellations in order to see the stars. But going back toward childhood will not help. The village is not better than Pittsburgh. Only Pittsburgh is better than Pittsburgh. Rome is better than Rome in the same way the sound of raccoon tongues licking the inside walls of steel garbage tubs is more than the stir of them in the muck of the garbage. Success is not enough. Love is not enough. We die and are put into the earth forever. Let us insist while there is still time. We must eat through the wildness of the sweet body already in our bed to reach the body within that body.